as you evaluate the threat landscape, do you believe the biggest threat to America comes from within?
I don't know that I would say the biggest threat comes from within, but domestic terrorism is certainly a concern. It is not a new issue. There have been for some time violence that's occurred at women's health centers, animal rights activists, even racially motivated extremism like the Ku Klux Klan. I think what's different now, though, is the heightened political tensions within the country and the power of the internet that allows extremists, whether they're foreign radical jihadists or domestic extremists in the United States, to connect with one another, to recruit, inspire, raise funds, radicalize, or plan their operations. And so I do think that that aspect regarding domestic terrorism is a new challenge that we face, and a difference that we have here domestically that I didn't ever have to worry about with foreign terrorists is our First and Fourth Amendment protections that make it more challenging, I think, to identify terrorists within the United States.
And have you seen an uptick in threats against members of Congress since the insurrection, given how hot this political climate is?
I would not say since the insurrection, but certainly in 2020, it began to go up considerably, and it has remained heightened for a number of members. It is not since January 6th. It certainly predated January 6th.
So as you've gone back to review, you have found that there is this uptick in threats against members of Congress. How much has political rhetoric played a role in that?
I think political rhetoric is a key driver of some of the anger that Americans feel across the political spectrum towards elected officials.
And that rhetoric continues to this day.
It does.
How much does it complicate your role?
Well, it certainly keeps things interesting, and it means that there are continued threats, unfortunately, against a number of elected officials.
Because of the political rhetoric and the heightened emotions.
Because some Americans choose to respond in that way, yes. I mean, I am concerned, we all have a right to express our political opinion. And we have a right to express anger and frustration, not in a violent way, to those who've been elected to represent us and to make them understand our thoughts and feelings regarding potential legislation. That's enshrined in our Constitution and part of what I've sworn to uphold and defend. I think what concerns me is a group of Americans that have fallen for some conspiracy theories and just some whacked out ideas that are not based in fact. And, I say tongue-in-cheek, now that we have a vaccine for COVID, I think we need to work on one for disinformation. But I am concerned about people who just cannot separate fact from fiction.
How ready are you if there was another group, animated group, that wanted to do harm here at the Capitol building?
Yes, so I think certainly the Capitol Police are far more attuned and far more sensitive to those kind of threats. And we've been through a series of after-action reviews. There have been IG reports. There are several committee reports that are coming out identifying things that we can and should do better to ensure that we're ready in the future. It's not our job to prevent Americans from becoming agitated and storming the Capitol, but I can say with confidence that if that were to occur again, the next time we would be ready.
Do you feel like the investigations that have been done and the investigations underway give you the sufficient information?
They certainly give us a lot of material to start with, yes. There have been a number of in-depth IG investigations and hearings by both Senate and House committees, as well as the Honoré Task Force that looked at ways to improve security at the Capitol. I think we have a lot of information that we need to move forward with developing a security strategy. I think the purpose of the January 6th Commission was intended to be much broader, and we don't need to wait on a commission like that to move forward with improving security.
Do you still have any outstanding questions that hasn't been answered for you about the systemic failures that led to January 6th?
So I'm sure certainly much could be learned by a January 6th Commission, but the cause of the insurrection is really not necessary for me to understand the ways in which we need to improve the security at the Capitol. That is less relevant to my job. There are certainly people who would benefit from that, but my office is not dependent on understanding the cause of the insurrection in order to develop a way forward.
The review you were part of found that police were understaffed, insufficiently equipped, and inadequately trained, as well as woefully lacking in intelligence capabilities.
So first I would say I think the staffing levels will take probably the longest time to address because there is great competition for people with this skill set across the United States. And so we're working with the Capitol Police to develop some different kinds of staffing strategies that would enable us to flesh out their ranks and allow for even more training. I think one of the areas where I've seen the most concrete improvement is, as we've discussed, in intelligence. There's a very competent intelligence professional who is now leading the intelligence team at the U.S. Capitol Police. She does need a larger staff and some additional training, but certainly I've seen a tremendous improvement in the ability to integrate the U.S. Capitol Police with others who are tracking threats in the national capital region.
Because a lot of the post-analysis after the insurrection was there was a failure of imagination with the intelligence coming in. Do you feel like that is adequately addressed now? Are you confident?
Oh, I think that the failure of imagination part was definitely fixed on January 6th, and we can envision all kinds of things that might happen on a given day as opposed to assuming that it's just going to go the way it did previously. I think what they've done a much better job of is plugging into other organizations that are tracking threats across the capital region. And that was really an easy fix, but a significant shortfall prior to January 6th. Just being plugged into that network of analysts that are looking at these kind of things and talking about it at an analytical level.
Many Capitol Police officers reported to CNN that they are exhausted, they feel overworked. More than 70 officers have resigned or retired since the insurrection. One senior officer said, "We are hemorrhaging people still. It's amazing to watch these young officers leave." What do you say to that?
Yeah, I say to those young officers who are thinking of leaving, I would ask them to hang in there a little longer. We are working to rapidly hire a permanent chief of police for the U.S. Capitol Police. They've had an acting chief since the 6th of January, and I think in some of the leadership changes that are occurring within the Capitol Police and are going to occur are going to make a big difference. We are seeking a transformative leader who will help turn around the culture, the morale, and the training posture of the Capitol Police. So those who are still contemplating where their future lies, I would ask them to give the team some time and be a little more patient.
And where are you on the leadership search? Since you brought up,
Yes.
that is one of the things you're telling some of the officers, hold out,
Sure.
we're going to replace, we're going to do something there. Can you give us any updates?
So we are in the midst of the search for a permanent chief of police. The window has closed for applications, and I can tell you that we were excited at the diversity and competence and experience level of a number of the candidates, and we're about to embark on interviews. So certainly by mid to late summer, we should have selected a permanent chief of police for the U.S. Capitol Police.